And CCTV's Clementine Logan just returned from Cote d'Ivoire, where she was following the story closely for us. She now joins us live here in our Nairobi studios. Clementine, I know you jetted in this morning. It's great to have you back. Now, President Ouattara was widely expected to win the election. What kind of reaction do you expect from the various regions in Cote d'Ivoire to the confirmation that he has now secured a second term?
Yeah, that's right, Panina. I don't think that the news of Alassane Ouattara's victory will have come as any major surprise to people in Cote d'Ivoire. He was set to secure a second term off the back of impressive economic growth, and also in the face of what was a very fractured opposition coalition by the time it came to the voting day itself. 3 presidential candidates withdrew ahead of the vote, and a lot of opposition supporters felt that by the time it came to voting day, they weren't very well represented. And I think that, you know, there will be a sense of disappointment among some of the opposition supporters that Alassane Ouattara's main opponent, Pascal Affi-N'Guessin, who was running for the moderates within the opposition coalition, only garnered 9% of the vote. But beyond all of that, I think that there will be a huge sense of relief in the country as well. Speaking to people in both camps, you certainly got the impression that regardless of their political affiliations, nobody wanted to see a repeat of the violence that happened in 2010. And for many people, this election represented a chance to sort of turn over a new page and begin a more positive chapter in the country's history. So I think now people will sort of be looking forward to sort of see how the country is going to progress in the next 5 years. And the opposition will probably be taking a long, hard look at itself and thinking of a strategy ahead of the elections in 2020.
And the opposition claim has already dismissed this election as a parody. They're questioning the 60% voter turnout announced by the Electoral Commission there. How significant is their refusal to acknowledge Ouattara's win, especially considering the divisions from Cote d'Ivoire's recent political history?
Well, initially the Independent Electoral Commission had put the voter turnout at around 60%. That was the day after, or the evening following the voting day. And Ouattara had always hoped for a high voter turnout. He called on his supporters to turn out in massive numbers because he wanted a high voter turnout to legitimise any mandate that he would potentially win. The opposition coalition alleged as soon as that statistic came out that it was much lower. They put it at around 53%, and now I believe the official statistic that everyone's agreed on is now 54%. And that probably does reflect the fact that, you know, there was this partial boycott by the opposition coalition and probably a certain degree of voter apathy among opposition supporters. The key issue here is that the poll was deemed credible and transparent by election observers, and that will count for a lot in terms of how the new government's able to move forward. How much support they have on the ground is another issue, but the poll was deemed credible, and now the hopes are that, you know, these results will be accepted peacefully, and that, as I said, this election will mark a new chapter in the country's history. Lots of people will just be hoping that it will be a peaceful one.
And Clem, you were there throughout this exercise. You understand the issues that shaped up this election. From what you saw on the ground, what will be the biggest priorities for Ouattara's second-term government?
Well, in the last few years under Alassane Ouattara, there's been significant economic growth, and I think that his government will be very keen on cementing these improvements in economic performance, cementing Cote d'Ivoire's role as an economic hub in the region and a country that plays a central political role. But his political opponents accuse him of creating unequal growth, and they also cite a very high youth unemployment rate. It's thought that around 1 in 2 under 35-year-olds are jobless. That's a huge issue that both sides agree needs to be addressed urgently, and an analyst that we spoke to said a real lack of entrepreneurship could prevent the country from progressing or realising its economic potential. Aside from that, the very pressing issue of national reconciliation, which you heard a little bit about in that package, you know, among the opposition supporters that we spoke to, a lot of them said that they felt the reconciliation process was far from being completed. They don't believe that the country can move forward together until those who were imprisoned and forced to go into exile in the wake of the 2010 violence are released or pardoned. That's what they want. want. That's certainly the feeling among hardline Laurent Gbagbo supporters, some of whom we spoke to when we travelled to Ganois. So there's that issue, and the fact that this election exposed the country's deep political divide, and I think moving forward, there will be hopes for more inclusive political dialogue between all political parties. That's certainly a sentiment that was echoed by the African Union election observers. They want to see more dialogue between all political parties, especially in the lead up to the next set of elections in 2020, which some people are already beginning to talk about.
All right, Clementine Logan here in our Nairobi studios. Many thanks, Clem.